Okay, the Gillette commercial is toxic, and we need to actually be vocal about this. No, I'm not triggered. No, my feelings aren't hurt. No, I'm not going to wear a blue penis hat and march around Washington, okay, over a Gillette commercial. It's not that terrible. However, we do need to address this problem. So what that is a propaganda piece. Straight out, plain and simple. There is actually an assault on masculinity right now. There's a push to want to make males more like females. And that way everything can be equal, okay? So this push, by the way, is causing more violence towards women. Less masculinity means more violence towards women. Period. End of story. The reason why that is, okay, if you haven't quite deconstructed this yet, is that men, not the cartoon of men that radical feminists like to promote, but actual men, very protective over their environment, okay? Those with masculine traits are protective over what's theirs. That includes their relationships, their families, their environment, okay? And that includes women, all right, that are within their environment. So men who are masculine are very protective over women. When you strip masculinity down and you say, don't be masculine, it's toxic, it's bad, it's terrible, well, what happens is you lose that protective nature. When you say women are strong and they don't need a man, they don't need to be protected by a man, well, now your ass is on your own when some guy who's bigger than you wants to take advantage of you, wants to harm you. Where's that protection? You don't have it. Because criminals and, we'll say the terrible elements of society prey on victims. Women are physically weaker than men. They make better victims. It's just a fact. It's a fact. It's a statistical fact, okay? So, statistically speaking, you're physically weaker, physically less capable, and therefore more prone to being victimized. Therefore, in a society where you have a civilized society, thank you very much, you need people who are stronger to protect those who are weaker. That is how we keep civilization and don't degrade into a violent society. A violent survival of the strongest type of situation, okay? And so, but if you're promoting egalitarianism and you're saying women are, can do just as good as men as every single thing out there, and women don't need a man, don't need to be protected, and men, in fact, need to be more like women. When you promote that idea, you lose that protective factor over women. And these young kids nowadays, and I say young kids like young adults, late teens, early 20s now, that are coming out of that system, are not protective over females. They're not. They will idly stand by. They're afraid to bully. They're afraid to be assertive. They're afraid to do things that are classically male that would involve protecting a woman if she was in trouble. And that's the reality of it. And so this just allows for more sinister elements of society to create more victims, and those victims happen to be you, ladies, okay, if you're watching. And then adding to the problem, it's destructive to relationships. You evolved, if you're a woman and you're listening to this, you evolved from generations after generations of women who are attracted to men for their masculine qualities. We take away those masculine qualities, you're left with men that you're not attracted to. It's going to damage your relationships, and it already has, because just go on any social media outlet or listen to any woman who is single or who was single recently, whatever. Just listen to her just talk for 5 seconds about it and let her tell you that there are no good men out there. Okay, well, there are no good men out there tells me we need a little bit more masculinity in our society, and maybe not less. So, I'll get off that soapbox. Now let's talk about the Gillette commercial. Why is it so bad? Again, I'll repeat if you're just, tuning in. No, I'm not going to cry about it and wear a penis hat and go march someplace. Okay, it's not that drastic. However, there is, again, this war, if you want to call it a war, all right? It's now overt. There's an overt attack on masculinity and what is considered conventionally or traditionally masculine. And these things, in the attack, and that is a propaganda piece for it, the attack works like this. We put out and illustrate things that aren't real, okay, or true, and we attribute it to this target group. And we say this target group is bad because of these things that are happening that aren't actually happening. And then we say we need to fight against it. That's pretty much the basics of how it works. So in this case, what you have is a commercial. I'll just illustrate a snippet in the commercial, okay? A black woman, female maid, is like up on a ladder, small step stool, and some white nerdy guy is trying to grab her ass, and it's a sitcom. And then you have all these people in the crowd, slow motion laughing at the sitcom. Because masculinity is toxic, right? It's an example of toxic masculinity. I have a question for anyone listening to me. When was the last time you saw a sitcom where a nerdy white guy was grabbing and sexually harassing a black maid and everyone in the audience was laughing about it? I cannot name a single episode of anything, mainstream or not mainstream, that has that happening. And if that was happening, how many men do you think in the audience would be like, what the fuck am I watching right now? You know what I'm saying? You have a lot of men that would be very annoyed at that and would have something to say about it, okay, if they're being masculine. So that's just an example. In the commercial, it goes throughout the entire commercial. I can break the entire commercial down for you, okay? It's one thing after another that is a cartoon of what is considered masculine. And it's not real. It's not actually happening, okay? You know what's real? Sex trafficking. That's real. Why don't we talk about that? Why don't we fight against that? Why don't we do something about that, okay? And guess who participates in that? Criminal men, all right? I won't say masculine men, we'll say criminal men. But who also participates and allows it to happen? Women who are paid by criminal men usually to suck in young girls and get them into sex trafficking. That happens. That's a real problem. I'd rather attack a real problem like that than attack a fictitious problem of the nerdy white guy touching the maid's butt at the sitcom where everyone laughs that doesn't exist. Okay? I'd rather attack the thing that exists, not the thing that doesn't exist. More things that don't exist, okay, is this, in the commercial, you have, the guy, the business guy sitting at the conference table, touching her shoulder and then mansplaining. That, okay, why, okay, if this woman is at a conference table and she is sitting there as an equal with a bunch of dudes, fought her way in a male-driven environment to be sitting at that conference table and being in business, in negotiations, guess what? She can probably stand up for herself and say, hey, Bill, get your hand off my shoulder. I'm not done talking, all right? I've been in conference rooms where women are very assertive, and they do just fine. And guess what? In those environments, people are dicks. There's guys that will, guys and females and males that will, disagree in a heated thing in a negotiation or a conference, business, meeting, and they'll attack each other, males and females. It's part of the territory of being in that environment. That is not a male or masculine thing where poor Becky now has to go home and cry herself to sleep because she makes 70 cents on the dollar for her male counterparts and she's just abused at her workplace. That shit's not going on, I promise you. There are fewer women that make it to that because they don't want to make it to that, all right? They choose to not be in a high-powered environment. But those women that are in this high-powered business environment, that are involved in negotiations, different things, they're pretty fucking ruthless, actually. And they know how to hold their own against, Bill the mansplainer. So that whole scenario, also in the commercial, I'm sorry, that's not happening either at any scale for it to be. At any scale that needs to be discussed. What the fuck is going on here? All right, more things. Bullying. Okay. Bullying is pretty bad, all right? But is it masculine to bully? Is that a masculine thing? There's actually statistically, females are bullied by other females more. They ran some study or test, I think it's amongst high school students, that females are bullied and pushed around by other females. Bullying is a social strategy that exists among all genders. Yes, we should fight against it. No, it's not a strictly male thing. And it's certainly not a masculine thing that we need to, stand up against and tell men not to bully. Like, how about tell everyone not to bully? I don't know. That's what I would think we would do. And then we could go look at let's see, we'll pick one more thing because I'm trying to now remember the commercial, though, but I mean, literally I could go through every piece of it to demonstrate how it is in fact a propaganda piece. Oh God, yeah. The kids are wrestling around or fighting, and hey, that's not okay. Okay, why is that not okay for kids to roughhouse? I don't understand. I mean, kids roughhouse. My kid's favorite thing to do with me is roughhouse with me. It literally is his favorite thing. His favorite thing to do is drop kick dad while I'm sitting someplace, and then we start wrestling or roughhousing. That is what male or how boys play and express, camaraderie, if you want to call it camaraderie, or I don't call it affection, but you know what I mean. But it's a ways that males communicate and interact with one another. And now they can't do that. Better go say something about that. You know what I mean? So there. And then let's see, what was but that's not even. So we just have a series of examples though, and I gave some, more of the basic ones. And now that I'm on camera, I can't freaking remember. But basically, you go through everything, and especially the ones I've mentioned, though, that are most egregious. They're not real. They're fictitious examples. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, even like the Me Too thing in the beginning. You had the Me Too thing was propagated in Hollywood by men in power, but more so than that, you had females that were getting positions and things for their sexual behavior. So females were trading their sexuality for parts in movies, for different things. Okay, so that was happening too. Nobody says anything about that. And then of course you do have the sexually harassing men. Yes, that's a problem. That happened with men in power. That what they showed on camera when they were talking about Me Too were just ordinary guys. You know what I mean? Who don't sexually harass people necessarily. I mean, even the demographic. I mean, gosh, they showed a picture of an elderly black man. Elderly black men are the smallest demographic of sexually harassing men. Okay? Like the smallest in terms of that stuff. So again, it just boils down to a lot of fiction being propagated. That's what propaganda does, though. We make a cartoon of the thing we want to attack. We cartoon it, and then we attack it like it's real. Well, it's not real, okay? The nerdy white guy grabbing the black maid's ass and then everyone laughing isn't a real thing. That's never ever happened. all right? So it allows people to demonize an entire gender, really. And, oh, men, keep yourselves in check. Oh, yeah, I remember the last one, which is a guy sees a good-looking female. He's going to approach her. And the other guy's like, hey, that's not okay. Oh, really? Okay, women. I'm waiting to hear that you don't want to be approached by an attractive male and asked out on a date. Single women. I'm waiting to hear that. I'm waiting to hear, okay, women, from now on, it's your job to ask the guy out on the date. And in fact, you have to lead the entire date, and he has to kind of sit there like adult and respond to you. Because God forbid he ever approaches you and says, hey, you know what? What are you doing next week? Maybe we should go grab a coffee. God forbid he does that, because he's going to be tabbed as being sexually harassing. In fact, some white knighting guy might pat him on the shoulder and say, hey, bro, that's not cool. You're going to approach her and ask her on a date. So it's like, again, these fictitious scenarios, things that are outright fiction, and then just demonizing normal behavior as well. Seeing a pretty woman, reacting to it, asking her out if you're a single guy is a normal thing. Okay, I'm sorry, it's normal. If you don't like it, then go talk to your parents and your grandparents, because probably that's how they met. All right? You wouldn't even exist right now if it wasn't for men approaching females and asking them on dates. So, in conclusion, all right, it is harmful. It's disguised, and it's disguised as guys need to keep other guys in check. Well, yeah, of course. That's a masculine quality. Being protective is masculine. If I see a male abusing somebody, or if I see anybody being abusive, victimizing someone else, I'm going to stand up against that. Of course. And like I mentioned in a previous example, how about we address sex trafficking? That's a real problem, not a fake problem like something promoted in this video. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy to do things to fight against real problems and real violence. Okay, real violence against women that does exist. I'm more than happy to fight against that stuff. But I'm not going to have you demonize who I am as a person, which is a man, or demonize my entire gender because, my gender's bad, right? So, to make things a little bit, I'm getting some comments, and it's good. But I'll read those later. Sorry, I can't read them all while I'm driving and talking. But it goes deeper than the commercial, guys. The APA, again, I've mentioned this in other videos. The American Psychological Association just put out a directive, and there's a course that psychologists can take for continuing education on how to deal with men in therapy and with psychological services, and is already deemed masculinity and what's in traditional masculinity as toxic. So when you have the certifying body for a psychologist, this is a lot of your family therapists, this is a lot of your couples or relationship therapists, okay, that you would go to, as well as mental health professionals, all right? The certifying body deems men to be toxic, masculinity, and then they'll get away from it. They'll get away with it by saying, well, we meant traditional masculinity. Doesn't matter what you meant, okay? When they deem masculinity as toxic and as a potential mental health risk, you know now, 100%, if you didn't think so before, you know now that masculinity is under attack, all right? And we need to push back against that. Because guess what? It wouldn't be healthy to do this. I have to use a counterexample because people, not you necessarily listening, but a lot of people out there are so fucking stupid that they can't see past their own paradigm. So I'll have to use the counterexample now just for them. But if you had commercials and a directive and things out there that were directly attacking females, that had a video presenting female bullying behavior, right? And female, let's say nagging, and let's use a bunch of female negative stereotypes like divorce raping, taking shit that doesn't belong to you from your ex, cheating with your man's best friend, failing a paternity test, like all the infidelity stereotypes we can do. Or how about, even stupid things like being indecisive with what restaurant you want to go to, stuff like that. Had a commercial just slamming on women. How about teachers and, how about female teachers sexually, I'll call it abuse, but sexually, not harassing, but fucking child rape, whatever you want to call it, on younger teenage boys. You know what I mean? How about that? We throw that in the commercial as well. We call it feminine. We call it toxic femininity or whatever. And then we say, women, you got to keep other women in check. It would be an obvious attack against women. And there's no way I would endorse that, okay? So there's your counter example for those of you who can't fucking think outside your own paradigm, all right? I don't endorse, and you should not endorse, and you should be vocal about it. All these, what happens is it gives opportunity for the nice beta guy to go, yeah, well, I think it was a good commercial. There's a lot of bad things out there about the things that men do. Yeah, ladies, guys, okay, guys, if you're doing that, I got news for you. It's not going to get you laid, I promise. So just stop it, okay? Women aren't going to have sex with you. They will say how awesome and how nice you are for saying that, but they're not going to have sex with you because of it. So just stop, all right? The gig is up, all right? But you'll have the nice placating guys that will say that kind of stuff. It gives them a chance to white knight and stand up for something that doesn't exist, which is all the things in the commercial. And then they'll state, there's a lot of bad things about, a lot of bad men out there. Yeah, we should stand up. Of course we should stand up against any kind of injustice, right? We should do that. We are doing that, a lot of us, you know what I mean? But the answer is not to demonize an entire gender. So, in closing, this commercial is it worth crying over? No, it's not. Okay, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. However, it is only a small sliver of a bigger problem that's out there. When the APA puts out the directive they put out, there is a problem. You know that right now I cannot recommend, if you're having a relationship problem, I can't recommend that you go to a therapist right now. I can't do it in good conscience. Why? Because I can't risk you going to somebody that's going to demonize masculinity. I already know that if that person has those views and has those, we could call it radical feminist kind of ideology infiltrated into their practice, it's only going to damage your relationship more. Find an alternative source. Go to a coach. Go to somebody in your church, okay? Talk to a friend. You can talk to a therapist if they clearly are not on board with the directive. But that's going to be hard to find, to tell you the truth. Not a lot of them out there. So we have a massive problem. We have a massive attack against an entire gender. And it's not okay. So that's the commercial. It's a popular topic. You know what I mean? And it's not, again, I won't lose sleep over it, but I'll tell you this. You should be vocal about how negative that sort of thing is on our society. Not just for men, but for everybody. Particularly the kids, and particularly females, who are now going to reap the consequences of there being less masculine men out there. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Longer video. Sometimes I do longer videos. So hopefully you enjoyed listening.